Now, Bo, you might have some interesting thoughts on this. I realized when we just interviewed Devon a moment ago, I took a big old swig out of the straw while talking to Devon, and I realized it's kind of impossible to look cool drinking out of a straw as a grown man. Your thoughts? Because I saw myself in the camera, and I was like, "You look like a douche."
I think you have to play it up.
Yeah,
you can't try to look cool, but
you
if
think go pinky out and just really make
think,
a comedic sound with it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay,
and give it a little. And when you're done, give it a little.
You might be right there.
There you go.
I think that's good advice.
This is weird. We're usually on the other side.
I know. I thought about this on the way in. I was like, I'm usually the subject of Bo's mind. Now you're subject to my mind. Welcome to hell.
Yeah.
All right, lots to get into.
Twisted.
You and Zach obviously do a tremendous job. 12 o'clock today.
12 o'clock today.
Make sure you're checking out Bo and Zach today. OTAs last week.
OTAs.
That lovely time of the year where nothing really happens, but you kind of get a glimpse into the early, I guess, seed planting, as Nick Sirianni would call it.
Sure. Let's get some sprouts.
Yeah, let's grow some stuff. What was your just general takeaway vibe-wise from OTAs last week? Because I was thinking about this. The season ended on such a sour note. Like staff getting fired. There was some unhappy people in that building. Just generally, you fell off a cliff and embarrassed yourself. They didn't really address it much publicly. They just kind of swept it under and were like, we're moving on. Smoke bomb over here. All is well.
We would have talked to you a week earlier, but there was all that snow. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Is the vibe cleansed down there? Is there a kind of a fresh beginnings type of era started? Like, what was your general feeling in the building?
I think it's hard to say without actually being, there in the locker room. Now, like, obviously there is some freshness. You've got new coordinators on both sides of the ball, and all of that stuff is new. And you got Vic Fangio, wearing his, like, exactly the outfit that you would want him to be wearing, these, like, khaki shorts and a hoodie sweatshirt.
85 degrees. Exactly. I was sweating looking at that.
Just sort of, like, crankily hovering around in the backfield. But Nick Sirianni is like one of my takeaways from watching that practice last week is that, like, this is where he does his best work, right?
Okay.
Like, this is his favorite thing, is to be coaching at the details in practice. And he is on top of all this stuff. He's getting after Johnny Wilson for not getting after him, just teaching him about if he's coming across the field this way and the ball is thrown behind him, don't just keep going this way, follow the ball and go upfield that way. Sort of small coaching points like that. Like, this is the stuff that I think that maybe he is best at. And so, like, that's fun. And there is this era or like feeling of newness, but without knowing why they fell off such a cliff in the first place at the end of last season, it's hard to know whether they have done enough to rectify the things that might have been going wrong.
So as a complete outsider that's not down there ever, is it safe to assume that the funkiness came from the non-belief in the two previous coordinators? Do you think it's something that simple, or do you think it was a more complicated issue? Because surface level, it looks like they addressed the problem. They fired people. They moved on. They brought in some more established people to right the ship. Is it just as simple as maybe the players didn't believe in some of what was being taught last year?
I think it's probably never that simple. And I think if you talk to people who were close to it last year, like, even they would sort of shake their heads and be like I can think of some reasons why it went wrong, but nothing explains why it went so wrong. And it's probably a combination of many different things. Obviously, the decision to move on from Sean Desai midseason to Matt Patricia without having a cohesive plan on how what that was going to look like, and, like, not understanding that Matt Patricia, even in a perfect world, does not have a good track record as a defensive coordinator. Like, I think that was probably the biggest thing, but it doesn't explain why the offense fell off a cliff. It doesn't explain, like, why the defense was so bad, why guys, like, looked like they just sort of stopped caring a little bit. And so I think that's a big part of it, but it's going to probably take a while before all of the like reasons come out.
Yeah, some of the stuff that was just getting, like, leaked out, like Hassan Reddick might have been a guy that was chasing stats and not caring. Like, it was a lot of, like, finger pointing, and then it all just kind of got, like, forgotten about. So, like, I'm very curious to see how this is corrected, because I do believe, the Eagles are very good at seeing a problem, addressing it for the most part, and kind of starting over. Like, they do have that kind of inherent in them where it's like, okay, that sucked. here it is. We're moving on, and maybe it'll be fixed, but maybe not.
And I think the flip side to that is that oftentimes they are reactionary,
sure,
and not proactive, right? And that is like they will listen to something and hear and be a little bit rabbit-eared about like what people are saying and what is being like talked about the team, and they will sometimes overcorrect and address it, but it's not always them seeing what's coming down the pike and being prepared for that.
Sure. Yeah, I think they get caught with their pants down and
sometimes.
then go, we got to pull our pants up here quickly because, we don't want this out on display. All right. So one of the interesting parts going into this year is you took the secondary, which was a huge Achilles heel last year. You overcorrected to the point now where the depth chart starting battle situation should be pretty interesting. You have a guy like Isaiah Rodgers, who Eagles fans aren't even familiar with. He put up some really good numbers in Indy his final year, like analytics, all that advanced stuff. Then you have Cooper DeJean coming in. You have Kenyon Mitchell coming in. You bring back CJ GJ. You got Avonte Maddox back on a team-friendly deal. You threw a lot of talent at that position. What was your kind of first observation at OTAs about it? And then, what do you kind of expect when training camp gets underway here with the secondary?
There's no doubt that this is their deepest spot on defense. I would say, I was a little bit surprised to see just the day that we were there that Isaiah Rodgers was working with the first team defense opposite Darius Slay. Now, James Bradbury wasn't there. My expectation is that he's not going to be
post June 1st.
This team. The Eagles are not giving Quinion Mitchell that starting spot right away. My expectation is it will be his week one, and Keely Ringo wasn't there that day. And so my guess is Keely Ringo will be there when we see practice, I think, on Thursday, and I'll be surprised. I'll be interested to see if it's Ringo or Rodgers there. But I was a little bit surprised that they sort of just, let Rodgers take that spot, knowing that he wasn't here last year. He was out of the league, and it's not like this is a coaching staff that he's familiar with. Like this is Vic Fangio just coming in and looking at what he has. And I thought Rodgers looked pretty good. Now, I've been generally skeptical of the idea that he has a definite spot on this roster.
Okay.
Just because they're deep there, and it's not like they owe anything to him. But I thought he looked pretty good, and I would say I'm probably just 52% that he makes the team at this point. Then maybe I was 48% last week.
And how did DeJean and Mitchell look? Did they look like they belong? I know it's only OTAs and your shirts and all that, but did they, did they have that kind of aura?
You want to check the box, right? Quinion Mitchell, so he was working with the twos at right cornerback the entire time. I thought he looked the part. Okay. He was running. Now he was running with Jacob Harris, right? Who's a 27-year-old, ex tight end.
Yeah.
This is not
he should be running
fair
with Jacob.
Approximation, right? But he was stride for stride with him downfield on two balls that were thrown to him. Good coverage. I thought he looked fine. Seemed like he was comfortable in the zone that he was being tasked with playing. Cooper DeJean. It was interesting because some people, some coaches would say, I want this guy to become an expert in one position before putting too much on him. With Cooper DeJean and Vic Fangio, what he chose to do, he was playing nickel, he was playing left corner, he was playing right corner, he was playing everything.
Positionless football, right?
Not positionless football. Do not get me started on that. So I think that's interesting. That let's throw everything at him, see what
is
he
that
can
to
learn.
See what he can absorb. You think
probably so,
and learn what's in between the ears.
Yeah,
some Fangio's kind of grilling him.
I would imagine so.
Okay,
and let's find out where it is that he seems the most comfortable. Okay. And maybe we'll learn something that way. So, I mean, they are certainly deep here. Avonte Maddox is not assured of making this team.
What do you think? I was thinking about that today. I was like, he could be cut. Do you see him?
Yeah, I mean, they literally cut him already, right?
Yeah.
And so that means they're comfortable with him not being on the roster. But
he also has some safety experience.
Yes.
When healthy, he can play a really nice slot corner for you. He is a versatile asset for this team. Do you think? What do you put the odds at that he's on, the opening day roster?
I would lean towards yes, because
a 60-40-ish type of thing?
The thing with Avonte Maddox is, and the reason that you would be comfortable moving on from him in the offseason, the biggest knock on Avonte Maddox is he can't stay healthy.
Sure.
Right? And he has had real trouble staying healthy each of the past 3 seasons. But if he makes it through training camp and is healthy, then he probably is going to deserve to be on the roster. Right?
Yeah.
He's a good enough player. And the versatility that you talked about, he can back up at safety where they need a little bit of safety depth. Sidney Brown is coming back from the torn ACL. We don't know if he'll be ready for week 1. And if he's not, then the top backup there is probably Mekhi Garner. And that's why you saw Avonte Maddox playing some safety last week in OTAs. Maybe theoretically down the line, Cooper DeJean can do that as well, but we didn't see him do that. So I think right now I would lean towards Maddox being on the team.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was his rookie year. He ended up where he got hurt in Green Bay. I think he played some pretty good safety, just being thrown in there.
Yeah, and he did it, I believe, 2 seasons ago in that Cowboys game when they gave up that long 4th down conversion. Josiah Scott was in the nickel. Yeah, he looked.
It's always good to get positionless players on your roster, Bo.
I'm not going to be baited.
So the other position that's kind of up for grabs a little bit is the right guard position. You have, a Matt Hennessy you brought in, a vet kind of depth backup, might be able to challenge for a starting spot. Tyler Steen, kind of the presumed favorite to take the job. You have a couple guys in here now that are, it's the position that's up for grabs. What are your thoughts after OTAs and seeing kind of first, second unit and who's given the chance versus kind of who's not? What are your expectations from right guard battle?
So Steen was the guy last week, got the first shot at right guard. I think he's still the favorite. I think they're setting things up for it's his job to lose.
Okay.
Matt Hennessy, who you mentioned, was brought in the offseason, has starting experience at guard and center. So it was a little bit of a thing like, let's see where they line him up today. And they did line him up as the second team right guard. So if like that continues throughout this OTA that we see on Thursday and then the mandatory minicamp when we see 3 days of practice and he's only working at right guard, then that will tell me that like they're really setting this up as a head-to-head battle. If he's playing some center and working around, then maybe not. We'll see. Mekhi Becton, like, boy, would that be like a lot of man to be playing right guard.
Was he just like overwhelmingly large?
He's huge, yeah.
Like Jordan Mailata.
Like he is bigger than Jordan Mailata, which is wild, right?
That is a big boy.
That's probably too big for guard, but maybe not.
I mean, power-wise, you would think he could throw guys around.
Sure.
If he's athletically.
And I think I think we probably make more of that than is actually the case. Like, if Fred Johnson has played guard before, and he's a tall guy. Like, I think if Mekhi Becton, if they wanted him to do that, he probably could do it.
It helps when you have Lane Johnson to your right.
Yeah, it would change, maybe it would change Jalen Hurts' throwing lanes a little bit when he's throwing there, but I think he could probably do it. And I don't think that's impossible. It was also notable that Trevor Keegan, their 5th-round pick, was at left guard.
Our man Trevor, we got to interview
Trevor,
him.
Our buddy.
He was great. Friend of the show. He's going to be an intern.
DFOP.
He lives 10 feet down the hall.
Yeah, absolutely. Never played right guard in college, so we were wondering if he would, start playing right guard just to sort of acclimatize. But he was at left guard last week.
Okay.
Again, one that we will follow. I think an interesting our framing device for the show today, our Eagles show at noon with Zach, is like trying to find comparisons of like recent Eagles seasons with guys this year, like what to expect. Can Nakobe Dean be 2022 TJ Edwards this year? And Zach put it out there, and I think somebody made a good point on Twitter. Like there is some connectivity. You can sort of squint and see what if Tyler Steen and Matt Hennessy this year is sort of like Isaac Sayamalu and Stefan Wisniewski from 2017.
Okay.
Right? The third-round pick in his second year. You give him a shot, and if he can't handle it, then you've got this veteran with versatility who can step in and maybe just sort of get the job done as a possibility as a backup.
All right. One of the other things I keep forgetting is real, but then you see him at every golf club across the area lately. He's got, huge thighs, squatting off with Jalen in the locker room. Apparently Jake Elliott was a part of the squat off between those two. Yeah. Good for Jake Elliott getting in there.
Him,
yeah, stepping up. Saquon Barkley. I mean, this is a really exciting addition. And
Red flag to you that his best golfing buddy is Will Grier?
That did jump out at me a little bit. And Kenny Pickett breaking 100 after like just picking up clubs is really offensive to me too. It just shows you how good athletes these are. I
mean, we could have been playing from the Whites or something like that.
Where does the Will Grier thing come from? They just hit it off as golf guys?
I think they're both maybe like
not good enough to challenge Jake Elliott. So like, let me find somebody on my level.
Well, I also like new here, and so Jake Elliott's got a wife and a kid at home. He lives here full time. Maybe these guys are like
the outsiders.
Families.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So Saquon, like I keep forgetting he's an Eagle now, but he's an Eagle. This should be a really fun toy for Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore. Not much to take away, obviously, from OTAs on how they're going to use them. But like, what's the sense you get? Like, is he just going to be a 3-down back that's on the field all the time? Are they going to use him in the passing game a lot? What do you kind of envision here from Saquon?
3 downs, yes, right. That's what they're paying him for. You don't.
So who's backing him up?
You don't break the bank to have a guy who's only going to play 2 downs, right?
Is it Kenny Gainwell?
I think Gainwell will be the top guy still. Now, Zach makes the case for Will Shipley, the 4th-round pick. He thinks, they used that pick on him. They're going to give him a bigger role. I just think, we've seen Nick Sirianni's trust level in Kenny Gainwell for a while. I have to see that not be the case before I expect it to not be the case. But the involvement in the passing game, that's one where I got to sort of see it first before I believe it, because we have sort of, last year that was one of the big topics in the summer was, DeAndre Swift is coming to this offense that threw it to running backs less than every other offense in the league in 2022. That's the place where we can finally create extra dynamism from this passing game. And DeAndre Swift is really good at this. And you enter the season, and it the first day of training camp, we're seeing all these passes to DeAndre Swift. And the season comes, and they just sort of get away from it. It's not a big part of the offense. Now, it's a different offense in theory.
Yeah.
Let's see if Kellen Moore is more willing to do this, wants to make this a bigger part of the offense. I don't know if it's a Jalen Hurts thing. He doesn't love throwing those passes. But until I see the offensive, the passing game, not just completely funneled towards A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, I'm not expecting it.
Yeah. DeAndre Swift, I just had to look it up, 39 receptions last year, which is actually more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel like it happened at all.
No.
And to me, I think the best ball Jalen Hurts throws is to a guy running out of the backfield. I think he leads a guy.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I don't know if the advanced analytics back it up. He does throw a good deep ball. I'm not trying to say he's but I love the way he leads a running back or somebody on a short, shallow route. I just think he throws a really nice ball there. So I'd love to see it personally. Speaking of Jalen Hurts,
I think they need that. They need something to be the 4th option in the passing game.
Yeah.
And Saquon Barkley is certainly the most talented of those possibilities.
So I've seen a couple, I still listen to sports radio and I'm on Twitter way too much. I've seen, some of the Jalen Hurts discourse, and it is a monster season for him. Would you classify his job this year as easy or difficult? Because you have a lot of talented players on that side of the ball, a lot. And surface level, you go, well, this should be easy. It's like a kid on the playground with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley. It's a Pro Bowl team. But then you think about internally, they're not going to outwardly roast you in public at the media scrums, but there's only one football to go around. Do you think his job is easy or difficult this year?
I think that most quarterbacks in the league would trade places with Jalen Hurts in a second, right? I think if there was the 32 starting quarterbacks got to have their own draft of which team they wanted to be on,
Eagles would be one.
Given the stuff around them, they would be certainly in the top 3.
But doesn't that also make it difficult?
I mean, sure, because the expectations are high.
Be successful.
And this is a city that has high expectations, and the organization has high expectations for Jalen Hurts. But I would say I would tilt more towards easy. Now, he's got to be better than he was last year.
Yeah.
But would you rather be him or
Bryce Young in Carolina?
Right. Of course.
Of course, you'd rather be Jalen Hurts.
We always make fun of when coaches say it's a good problem to have.
Sure.
But I would say that for Jalen Hurts, it's probably a good problem to have.
I do wonder how difficult it becomes if there isn't early success. This town is incestuous and crazy, and when it comes to their football team, if there's not early success with that talent on the offensive side of the ball, and mentally between the ears, I don't think there's a better guy you could want in that position. But I just sense if it doesn't start well, that job becomes really difficult.
No doubt. And I think he would say that he is well equipped to shut that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job not paying attention to that stuff, but eventually it creeps in.
Do you think too much was made of him and the sideline presence he has, or do you think there's some validity to that? Because you talked about it, he mentally is equipped to handle that, but he almost goes into this meditative state on the sideline where he kind of shuts things out. He probably focuses, and he's probably not watching the game as much. I don't know this. I'm just assuming it kind of looks like a meditative state where he's getting himself ready for the next series and all right, what didn't I do well there? What did I do? He's kind of going through it all. On the inverse of that, maybe you want to go see him grab a teammate by the shoulder pads and pump somebody up. Maybe you want to see him be that vocal leader. Do you think too much was made of that, or do you think there's validity to his kind of sideline presence a little bit? I think it's a very interesting talking point about him.
Well, you know what? I think back to the last press conference he gave when the season was over in his locker room after the loss to Tampa Bay. And he sort of said two things that were at odds with each other. On the one hand, he's taking responsibility and saying, like, I need to do a better job as a leader. I gotta set the culture for the organization, all that stuff. But then he's also saying, which is true, that like I'm the same guy I was last year, and you were all telling me that like this was perfect leadership, right? And that's true.
Sure.
And so like where is the truth in the middle of that? Like, does he need to change? Should he just be the same? You want him to be himself, right? I do think that like I'm sure that there are some people in the locker room who think to themselves, boy, like I'd love if the quarterback was a little bit more rah-rah with me or cared about stuff. But if he's playing great and he's all about the laser focus of the task at hand and, 1% better every day, then maybe that's bringing people along, and it's show me what you do, not what you say. So I think he's still trying to find that.
Because he's still a very young player, and that's a difficult thing.
He is. And again, this is another one where it's funny because when they give him the contract extension after 2022, Jeffrey Lurie is talking about this is the most mature 24-year-old I've ever seen. Like, this is exactly the kind of person you want to be. And then after last year, Howie Roseman's like, hey, guys, you got to remember, this is just a 25-year-old. You can't expect him to be like, okay, let's you can't have it both ways. But listen, his leadership is going to be, like you talk about, like from a sports radio standpoint, it's going to be something that everybody's paying attention to. That body language. I think the relationship with Nick Sirianni of it, and him not taking the opportunity to sort of stump for Sirianni in that same press conference is a thread that is going to be a storyline all season long. What does their relationship seem like? I think we'll just sort of have to see how that plays out.
Before we get to our French Open handicapping here with Bo, one last one for you, and I'm sure knowing you watch this. Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman did a little 2 Facts and a Lie segment on the website last week. It was hosted by a local comedian, Blake Wexler.
Blake Wexler, yeah.
Yes. He did a very good job with it. That relationship is an interesting one, the Howie and Nick one, because, the word is, or at least the feeling publicly is, they prefer to bring in somebody younger that doesn't have kind of the carte blanche to override Howie Roseman, like, people call it the puppet coach or whatever. Did you take away anything from their relationship in that? Because I thought it was an interesting, it was a PR move. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's some content, so you're always cranking out the content on Eagles.com. They do a great job down there. But it almost seemed to me like, hey, we're going to show how buddy-buddy these guys are and how close the relationship is. Look, they're just friends. What did you take away from their interactions in that video?
I think it was funny in that, like, when you see them in that unplanned thing, that like Nick Sirianni is just so much cooler, right? Than Howie Roseman is. Like, and he's calling his bluff. He's like, yeah, go ahead, name 15 stadiums in 30 seconds.
How could he not do that, by the way?
I couldn't understand why. Like, he was just bouncing around. Go through division by division. What are we doing, Howie?
Come on. You've been to almost all of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I've been to 25 of them. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
You're a GM.
Well, I think what happened was, like, he realized early on he wasn't going to get it, and so then he didn't want it to look like he was trying.
Sure.
And couldn't get it. And he sort of bailed early. But, like, the power dynamic in their relationship is, like, as Howie Roseman is the one who's making
big
the
boss.
decisions.
Yeah.
He's in charge. He sets the culture of the organization. He makes the big decisions. And to his credit, Nick Sirianni doesn't really want to be involved in so much of the roster management stuff.
Sure.
Howie is one of the best general managers in the league.
No doubt.
He does a fantastic job relative to most of the league. But in terms of just the two of them in a room or at the bar, who's the one who is more magnetic of a personality? I think it's Sirianni.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So one thing, I don't know if this ever comes up on the show with you and Zach, but you're a tennis nut. You
I don't want to overstate
Nut is
it.
a little oversold.
I watch the majors.
Yes, and you compete in a fantasy or a tennis league.
Well, my brother and I
Yes.
do a draft at the beginning of every year for the majors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now your tennis knowledge is deeper than mine. I was watching a little bit of the French Open this weekend with my college buddy who played tennis, and
okay.
I always try to get. I'm like, talk to me like I'm 5. The French Open is happening. If you want to get in on it with Bet Parks, you certainly can. So I sent you a homework assignment early this morning. I said, Bo,
Like a homework assignment.
let's give the people some winners here on the French Open. Let's pick one favorite, one long shot.
Yeah.
Now,
keep in mind this is not expert analysis.
Now, Captain Clay, Rafael Nadal, goes out in the first round exit. What is he? He's like 24-3 or something. And
I think more than that, but more than. Oh, you mean like
it's only third loss in like the French Open
crazy.
ever or something.
Well, and it's interesting because Iga Swiatek, the women's number one, who has won 3 French Opens, despite she's only 22 years old.
Jeez.
She's I think like 28-2 all time.
Wow.
In just 5 French Opens, she is like.
Oh yeah, then
it's
Nadal's
crazy.
Be like
She's
100.
on a pace like Nadal was. Like she is right now on clay like Nadal was that early in his career through his first 5, which is kind of crazy to think about because he was so dominant. But she's like minus.
I was going to say she's got to be
win,
outrageous
to outright win the tournament. So she's insane. And so it's interesting. I thought Bill Connolly of ESPN framed this well, where like usually the women's game is much more unpredictable than the men's game. It's like it's going to be one of 3 guys on the men's side. The women's tournament could be anybody. Whereas this year in the French, like it's Iga and everybody else on the women's side, and on the men's side, all the favorites they have these sort of things working against them.
Okay,
Novak has not been playing well. Carlos Alcaraz has this forearm issue. Yannick Sinner has been the best player this year, has a hip injury. So it's a little bit more up in the air on the men's side.
So who do we like to take home the clay title this year?
Well, I love Carlos Alcaraz, so he is the favorite at 220, which is not great odds given that he has
plus
been struggling all season. Yeah,
hey, it's plus money, man. To me, a winning bet, like obviously you want the long odd like home run play. But a 2-1 winner is still fine in my book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I like him the best. Now Sinner would make sense too if you think he can get it done. I don't like Novak, so I'm not gonna be betting on Novak. If you want the long shot on the men's side,
give us the long shot here.
It's not gonna happen. But I like Rublev. Who has this he always makes the quarters and just loses. He cannot make a semis, but eventually he's going to break through. He had a clay victory I think a couple tournaments ago. So I like Rublev. On the women's side, Iga is she's impossible to beat her. If you're going to throw a dart, I think Maddie Keys makes a little bit of sense.
Okay.
She just beat Danielle Collins, who has been just on a tear all season long, and she is like. She can be a bit of a head case sometimes, but on her best, she hits it as hard as anybody. So
all right, love it. A little French Open breakdown with Bo Wulf.
I got one more for you.
Oh,
because I know you were tweeting about the packing.
Oh yeah, I failed so bad on Thursday night.
Where did you fail in the preload?
In not realizing I needed the roof rack right away.
Okay.
So we have like a soft thulie that's not like a permanent thing. We just use it on road trips for like all the clothes and pillows and stuff like that. I thought because it was just a quick weekend down the shore, I could get away with just like a full car pack and not the roof rack.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Bob stroller. You probably are. The big tire like running jogging stroller.
Oh, okay.
We use that for the beach because the tires are good on the sand.
That makes sense.
But it takes up like
an
awkward amount of the
estate.
trunk, and then you throw in the beach chairs on top of it. And I packed and repacked 2 or 3 times thinking I could do it. And then I just like went inside like all sweaty and frustrated. I was like, I need to get the Thule out. So that was my mistake, was not just from the jump going Thule.
I made a big play that I was like, if the other dads had seen this, they would have been giving me a standing ovation, like a tip of the cap. We were staying in a hotel in DC over the weekend. And it was like, okay, Rachel and the kids are going to go down to breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pack everything up, bring it downstairs to the car. And we are talking like, you've got like the big suitcase.
Yeah.
Probably like 9 bags of stuff, a backpack for me, my son's backpack, and also 3 like enormous floated, like just dinosaurs. Like including the Momentosaurus, which is huge.
Were these gifts from the museums you guys visited?
No, these are just cases,
they brought
go-to things. And I was able to get it all in one trip. Like 9 bags in one grip over here. I've got the Momentosaurus perched on top of the rolling suitcase, and I'm getting it all downstairs in one fell swoop. And I was so proud. I was like,
You were expecting dads in the
Medal of
lobby,
Honor.
just
yeah,
like,
exactly.
You did it, folks. Look at it.
And then I followed it up with like a fantastic parallel parking job in DC.
Really
like,
just killed it.
I was really on my dad's stuff. And then there was like we were at lunch and just the reactions of something flying off the table and I just grabbed it like this. Oh my! I was
Your
like,
spidey senses were tingling.
I was in peak dad mode.
Now, does your wife see this and go, "Wow, I got the right one"? You know, is she like amazed by your dad level skills when you're locked in?
You
like
know,
that?
sometimes it's there's a knowing nod.
Yeah. Like, that's my man.
That's
you
right.
did it.
Yeah.
That's great. We've actually been talking about doing a DC trip ourselves with the girls and doing the museum.
I hate DC.
Do you? I went to school down there, so I have an affection for it. But I get it. Was it swampy and gross, or was it?
Of course it was.
Yeah,
Disgusting.
It's built on a swamp.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. So many crooked people down there. All right. Well, Bo, coming up today at 12, you and Zach are going to take us home with the Eagles coverage. You guys do a great job. I appreciate you swinging by.
Thank you very
hanging
much.
out with us. There's Bo Wulf, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.